Welcome to Empirical Pre-Pod. I won't trick you this time either. With the beginning.
With the music.
Yeah.
Is this where the music is playing?
Yes, that's amazing. We are here. I keep saying we every time I introduce somebody or the show, and it really started annoying me today.
Why?
Because the we is me. It's like the royal we or whatever. But like I'm the only guy who's doing anything. Like you're the one being introduced, so it's weird for me to say we.
No, we are here together.
Oh, I guess maybe you're right. Maybe I'm overthinking it.
I think you are.
Yeah, I have a tendency to do that. Either way, Katie Leeser is back, which I'm very excited about. We just decided realized it's been 2 years since last time. So what's awesome, this is actually what I've always wanted, is to eventually bring people back and kind of check in and follow up with them. So we've already covered your story up to that point.
Most of it.
Well, right.
Because
yeah.
I had a realization,
Sure.
This was really funny to me, that like I have split my life into two periods, pre and post the homies. And like I consider you one of the homies.
Yeah.
So there were a ton of things that happened. Like I had a whole other life before I met you guys.
Yeah, that's true. We kind of breezed over that.
Yeah, and
that's my favorite thing is after I record with people, like when we sit here and I'm cleaning up and they're like, we didn't talk about this or this or this, and I'm like, yeah, we're not going to cover every little thing.
No.
We'd be here forever.
It would be so long. Yeah, I'm trying to think though what year I met you guys.
I think we're already out of high school.
Yeah.
You were for sure, because you're very old.
It had to be like, yes, I'm way old. It had to be like 05, 06 maybe? Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's when I became friends with Kristen also.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you guys then started becoming friends too. She was friends with Adam also before I was friends with her.
Yeah. So I feel like I have, Andy Halder is one that stands out in my head as like, I remember being in Heather Janowski's backyard.
Yeah.
For a party and meeting Andy.
He's like an anchor. You remember Andy.
I remember. Well, I guess I would have to go back to Heather, though, because when my brother still lived at my dad's at the pond house, he started having parties. Don't tell my dad. And Heather and I'll never forget the moment. This is like, when I talk about people who have like past life or like soul connections with other people, she's one I always think about.
Yeah.
Because we were both, Sublime was playing, and we were just like dancing around like a couple of idiots, but had like no awareness of each other and like bumped into one another. Yeah. And we turned around and it was just like, I've known this person my whole life, was when I looked at her, I was like, oh my God, like there's my friend, but we had never met.
I think that's awesome. I find that with quite a few of our friends, because I've known Heather a long time too, because I used to hang out with Dave. Dave was my first friend in Oswego.
Oh yeah, you've mentioned that. That is hilarious.
And because I know,
well, I knew Dave before I knew Heather.
Right? Yeah.
Because Dan. Mm-hmm. I think was in the same graduating class as Dave.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
We all were. But there's something beautifully magnetic about her, where you just feel like you know her. Because you've got that too. So I can imagine when you guys met, it was like just being pulled together.
Yeah, it was like a happy explosion. I felt like.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then at some point after that, went to her house for a party, and I remember meeting Andy. And then it's sort of a blur. I don't remember when you and I met.
It was at Dan's before he lived at your dad's house. It was at the Boulder Hill house.
Saugatuck.
Yeah, back in Saugatuck days.
Oh, there's a beer called Days on Saugatuck.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if they still make it. This was like years and years ago. I went to it was some arcade in like River North in Chicago, and they had this huge like chalkboard wall with all like the different, because I they must have had like a microbrew on site,
Yeah.
and there was a beer called Days on Saugatuck, but it was Daze.
I
Which
say,
it was funny though, because Dan brewed beer for a
yeah,
while,
yeah.
and
I had a lot of
those
good
days
days
on Saugatuck
Saugatuck.
was a days for sure.
That's true. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I wish we had, even if just an empty can to just have would be cool.
I know I took a picture of it, but
Yeah.
I could blow it up, I suppose.
Yeah, like erase it and kill it, blow it up.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like make it big?
Yeah, like make it into a picture.
That would be cool too. So, what have you been doing since we last spoke?
Oh my gosh.
I'm excited about this too because this is one of those times where like you and I know because we've talked a bunch, but like now we have to play dumb for the audience.
A little bit.
But we kind of when we talked last time, you were kind of probing what you wanted to do.
Dude, it is like the perfect segue.
Yeah.
It is like where it ended and then where it picks up. It's like it just flows together so seamlessly.
Can you fill us in on that?
Yeah, so I remember very, very clearly that portion in the conversation when it was like, "What's next?" And I was like, "I have absolutely no idea,"
Right.
which is out of the norm for me because usually I have something I'm like working on.
Yeah.
But I didn't at that point, and it was just sort of like a standstill. Like what's gonna happen? Like I was fine with my job at that point. I had just moved back to Illinois from Iowa, and yeah, it was maybe. So we were talking. You think it was like the end of April we recorded?
End of May. It
End
would have
of
been
May?
the end of May. Yeah.
Okay. So then it was literally only a couple weeks, and I know the exact date. June 17th of 2023.
That's like a week after our episode went live. Maybe 2 weeks because you're right. It was a
I thought it went live by my birthday in July.
man. Do you think I recorded at the end of or in the middle of June? I'm so because I banked a bunch. Maybe we recorded at the end of May and it didn't go live until July.
That's
sounds, possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was June 17th, and I know this because Saturn had just gone retrograde, which ties into this whole thing.
Yes.
Saturn was in Pisces, and it went retrograde, and I was sitting on my couch, and I was like, just had this epiphany that like, I'm not happy with this job anymore.
Yeah.
Like this is not going to be sustainable for me. You know, I liked the work, but it's just sort of the demands of the job and like the productivity and, you know, it can be a really demanding job. Like unless
Right.
you're working in a specialty that, you know, is less involved, then it can go a lot quicker, like entering charges. But I mean, I was having to sift through like really dense stuff, and it was just draining. And I was like, this is not.
Because you were doing what, insurance?
No, so I was doing medical coding.
Okay.
My specialty was general surgery. So what that involved was reading surgery notes and then extracting like what were the procedures that were done, what are the diagnoses that like this patient had, and then assigning the corresponding codes to those procedures and diagnoses, and then that would go on to like billing, which is where insurance then comes in.
Right.
So my portion of it was like, you know, before you get to like the billing and insurance. And it's still, I really think that it's a cool profession, like especially if you like medicine, but I think that my workload was just getting to be really like unrealistic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, this, I need to figure something out. Like I'm not happy. This is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I'm not sure exactly when it like dawned on me that that I wanted to pursue astrology like as a career, because I think when we recorded, I talked about learning how to read the birth charts and knowing that there were like courses and things that I could do.
Right. There's so many layers to astrology too. Like tip of the iceberg is like just knowing your own sign. Maybe somebody knows their ascendant.
Yeah.
Like maybe they know some of their planets, but that is just barely first level stuff. It goes so much farther and deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be studying this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll never get to the end. Um, so yeah, I figured out that like this is really a passion and I want to explore like, how do I break into this? Because I had been following an astrologer on Facebook since probably like 2017, and I don't even know how I found her. And then when I was living in Iowa in 2020, I started following another astrologer who had a podcast that I was really, really in love with. So I just started reaching out, like, what do I do? Like, if I want to pursue this as a legitimate career, like, where the heck do I start?
Yeah.
So I got a couple of recommendations, and the astrologer who I had started following around 2017, she actually offers courses. She has a program called Astrology for Self-Discovery, and it's live, small group. We did it on the weekends. So I started doing that I think we started in March of 2023. So it must have been when I had that like light bulb moment. That must have been June 17th of. No, because you and I talked in 2023.
Yeah.
So the light bulb moment was June 2023. Then I started with her in March of 2024.
Okay, so
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah. So, and it hasn't been a continuous year.
Right.
We've, taken some breaks and stuff. Yeah. She lives in South Carolina, like the northern part. And so, like,
That's called North Carolina.
No, the northern part of South. I don't know what town she lives in. But they had that terrible flooding last summer. And so she was affected by that. And so that sort of, like, threw a wrench in things. But, yeah, I worked with a small group to learn, kind of just the fundamentals about like the signs, the planets, the houses. She, before the class had started, had, cast each of our charts. So we all had our own chart and each other's charts. And we just set about, figuring out like what is all this?
Yeah.
What does all this mean? How do I read this? How do I interpret it?
Can you tell us? So I have a basic Like I've always had a basic understanding of stuff, but you obviously with 5 minutes of training, you've far surpassed me. So I can understand. Sun sign is pretty self-explanatory. That's the zodiac sign that you're in at where the day you were born.
That's the ascendant.
Well, that's the hour.
That's the hour, yeah.
Right, but the sun sign is like.
So yeah, the sun sign is
within the 4 weeks you're born.
Yes.
But those are broken down. For instance, like I'm in Aries 3, which is just as simple as the third week.
Is that the decanate?
That's just the third week of Aries.
Okay. Yeah, that might.
It's the week of the Pioneer. Thank you very much. And
the week of what is the Pioneer?
That's true. Yeah, and on the day of the Iconoclast. Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I've got some fancy books.
Okay.
You'll get there. But and then the ascendant is then the Earth spins on a 24-hour, right? It rotates. Mm-hmm. So every 2 hours we're entering a new sign. Mm-hmm. So that's where your position on the planet at the time of your birth was in that sign. That's your rising or ascendant sign. Mm-hmm. Now, when you say, and the planets is similar to that also.
Yeah.
The positioning of the planets at the time of your birth.
Right.
Beyond that, when you say, I know I just burned through those, but I feel like those are easier to understand. When you say houses, now we're getting into some weeds. What do you mean by houses?
So yeah, if you look at a birth chart, which I feel like it would be helpful to give people, if they want to pull up their own chart, and try to like see, because you don't have like a YouTube channel.
I do have a YouTube channel.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Are you record? Is there a camera?
Right now, it just uploads the audio of the podcast, but one day I would like to.
Okay. Well, it would be awesome if you had it now because we could go from, a live shot of us to just showing like my computer screen. And then people could be like following along as I'm talking.
That would be a lot cooler.
That would be amazing, right? But if they want to just pull up their own and like pause us, and then come back.
Yeah.
If you go to astro.com, I don't know. I don't know exactly.
I'll put the links in the episode description.
Okay.
So or even if you have the link to the one, my birth chart, if they want to just see what one looks like.
Yeah, I think if they just go to astro.com and then kind of scroll down to charts and calculations, trying to see if there's, maybe that's not what they want to go to. There is somewhere on this website where they can do a free birth chart.
Yeah. If worst comes to worst, you can Google free birth chart.
Yeah. But anyway, just pull that up and let's see. I'm going to open my laptop now so I'm very visual.
Yeah.
So it helps me to have visual aids. Sorry for the dead air.
Luckily, I will edit it later.
Okay, cool.
I do going into this one. It'll probably require minimal editing.
Okay. So, you wanted me to start with, well, basically just like an explanation of what the chart is, what it looks like.
Well, even before we get there, what does houses mean?
Oh, the houses. Okay, so the reason I started talking about what a chart looks like is because that's the easiest way to
Define.
to like understand what is being said when we're saying houses.
Okay.
So if you look at the chart, it's a wheel. It's a complete circle, and it's broken up into 12 spaces, and these are basically just sections of the sky. So it's the birth
Is it
chart
broken
is
up
like,
into the 12 signs then?
yeah.
Is what you're saying.
So yeah, it's like if you were to take a snapshot of the sky from below at the time of birth, this is what you would see when you're looking up, and these are different sections of the sky.
Yeah.
And that's what the houses are. And yes, they correspond to each house is ruled by one of the 12 signs of the zodiac.
So houses is literally just the space you're talking about.
Yeah, the space in
it's still
in the
just
sky.
the zodiac sign,
Right?
a specific sign.
Yeah, it's where that. So like if
It becomes important. I'm sorry. It becomes important when we start talking about other aspects being in the same house.
like when you're talking about aspects between planets.
Right, like where it's like, oh, these are in the same house,
Yeah.
like meaning they're both Sagittarius.
Right, like
stuff like
looking
that.
at yours now, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, 4 planets and 1 asteroid in the 12th house.
Which would be Pisces.
Yes, it's the 12th house is ruled by Pisces, but in your chart, because of where the sun was at the time of your birth, your 12th house is ruled by Aries. So
What you just said doesn't make sense.
So if somebody were to be born with their first house, if their descendant is or ascendant is in Aries,
Right.
then the houses are gonna follow the normal progression of the zodiac.
Right.
First house is ruled by Aries, second Taurus, third Gemini,
So my
fourth
ascendant
Cancer.
is Taurus.
Your ascendant is ruled by Taurus, yeah. So your first house is in Taurus.
Okay.
Whereas somebody with their ascendant in Aries is going to have Aries in the first house. So most people do not have, it doesn't follow that normal progression.
Right.
Like my first house is ruled by Virgo because I have a Virgo ascendant. So then it follows the same order. It's just the starting point is going to be different for the majority of us.
Yeah. 'Cause I always liked that Aries was the first sign.
It is, yes. When we can talk all about what that means. I love getting into like the qualities of the signs. So we have cardinal, mutable, and fixed, and the cardinal signs are like your initiators. So that's Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, and we are really good at starting shit.
Yeah. I've always, to me, it's good enough to start it and then let somebody be like, hand it off.
Yeah, that's where you want your mutable people to come in and like, okay, let me tweak this, and then the fixed people are really the ones who see it through to completion.
Yeah.
So you do have, a mixture of that cardinal, like, let's get this party started.
Yeah.
And also the fixed.
It's really, really got to hold my interest, though.
Yeah.
Like, I have to care about it, or I'm like, I gotta get out of here. You guys can figure this out.
Right. Yeah. And I think because you have Sun, Moon, Mars, and Mercury, well, Sun and Moon are in Taurus and they're in your 12th house, or sorry, Sun and Moon are in Aries in your 12th house, which is being ruled by Aries.
I'm still not understanding the 12th house part of that sentence.
Okay.
Because the 12th house is Pisces.
Yes.
So how are you saying?
Do you need the visual to see?
Maybe that's what's ruining it for me.
So if we're looking at this wheel,
yeah,
then we've got, it's starting off at Taurus. So your first house right here is being ruled by Taurus.
Okay.
And then your second house is being ruled by Gemini. Your third house is being ruled by Cancer.
All the way around.
All the way around.
Oh, am I, because it's starting on Taurus?
Mm-hmm.
That's why the 12th house is Aries.
Correct.
Okay.
If you're
so in a generic thing, the 12th house would be Pisces,
Pisces.
Just in this way the zodiac's set up in general. But because of where your starting point is, it might be different.
Yes. However, the house...
I'm sorry, you guys don't have the visualization.
The house is still going to rule the same things.
Right.
So, like, the first house is the house of self. Sort of your public... it can be your physical appearance, for example. So you're going to die laughing at this. You're going to die. We are currently in Taurus season. You're a Taurus ascendant.
Right.
We're in Taurus season. I'm thinking a lot about Taurus stuff. I'm thinking about my favorite Taurus people. My two favorite Taurus men that are famous, Dwayne Johnson and John Cena. The person who hates wrestling.
Which is a mistake.
Which is maybe a mistake. Those are, like, when I think of the Taurus man, I immediately think of them.
Yeah.
However, I don't know what their ascendants are, so it's interesting to me. Some people with a Taurus sun, or whatever their sun is, you can pick it up. Like, I can tell that that person is a Taurus, or I can tell that that person is a Scorpio. But oftentimes... or like, this is a good comparison too. So our friend Annie is an Aries.
Right.
I feel like she's got Aries written all over her.
Oh yeah. Her
even
and I love
like
being an Aries.
the red hair. I mean, that's even, that is seriously a quality of a lot of Aries people are redheads.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what her ascendant is, but you can pick out the Aries in her really easily. You, on the other hand, I feel like you present more as a Taurus.
Yeah.
And that is, we can see that your ascendant is in Taurus, so that's going to be your outer self, your personality, just who you present to the world. Now, directly opposite, the first house is the 7th house. That's your house of relationships. So that's how you... behave, how you experience life in relation to the other. So on the one side, we've got first house is the house of self, 7th house is the house of the other. Right. Partnerships, marriages, just interpersonal relationships of any kind.
Right.
So these houses are going to retain, they're gonna rule the same thing, but they're gonna have sort of a different flavor depending on what you have on this cusp. So each of these lines that separates the houses, that's referred to as a house cusp.
Mm-hmm.
So your first house cusp ruler is Taurus. So even though that's the house of the self, someone with Aries on the first house cusp, they are going to come off seeming fiery, energetic. They're going to come off as that self-starter person, that cardinal personality.
Right.
Whereas your personality being a Taurus, you are probably not going to present with that fiery energy. Your energy is going to be, because your Taurus is an earth sign, Aries is a fire sign. Your energy and your personality is going to present as a lot more grounded, a lot more stable, maybe slower, a little bit more deliberate, maybe more of like a calming presence, where fire signs are, they're very active. You think about fire versus earth.
Yeah.
Earth is steady, it's stable, it's grounded. And I do think that you have that presence. I don't ever really see you get rattled or like riled up,
right.
So that's a way that you can look at that and see, like, okay, depending on my first house cusp, like, what is the sign there? And that can maybe give me some insight into how other people perceive me, because it's not always easy to know what other people perceive, right?
Right.
Because how you perceive yourself might be more in line with where your sun is.
Yeah.
And your sun is not in Taurus, your sun is not in your first house. So you might have a little bit of a blind spot as to how are people, picking up on my energy? How are they interpreting it? How am I coming off?
Right. Which I think a lot of that might come off as some stereotypical Aries negative qualities of arrogance and being talked down to and stuff like that, which are not things that I intentionally do, but that's just kind of what comes out.
Well, I don't think that's what comes out initially, though.
Yeah.
I think that maybe once you get a little more comfortable,
Yeah. The more somebody knows me, the meaner I can be to them.
a little bit. No, you feel like this is a safe space, I can be myself.
Yeah.
But I think that that the first house, it's really more just like how people perceive you, like from across a room.
Right.
Because me being a Virgo ascendant, I feel like, and I did a numerology class recently where we were talking about, because there was some connection between one of my numbers in numerology and my Virgo ascendant. And she was like, I don't understand you, because to look at you and to hear you is like two completely different experiences.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I feel like I can get on board with that, because I can see how if somebody were to perceive me from across the room and I wasn't speaking, I was just sitting quietly, they might have a completely different interpretation of my personality.
See, I feel that way about I've felt that way about myself also, but I don't know if that's true, because I don't know what other people are perceiving.
Right, it's hard.
But I feel like if you just look at me and judge me, you're gonna think one thing, and then when you actually talk to me, you're like, oh, this is very different.
Yes. Yeah, and I feel like that's people's experience of me too. I feel like before I start talking, I don't know, Virgo, like they're a little buttoned up, They're a little like just boundaried and maybe self-possessed.
Yeah.
More so than what I feel like, I have a moon in Sagittarius, which is very, very different type of energy. Once I let my guard down and I start talking and my emotions are coming through, you're like, this is not the person that I perceived from across the room, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
That was just sitting there quietly, like, very contained.
Yeah. Plus, that's got a partner with being a Cancer sun sign also, which is not necessarily reserved, but more emotional and aware, empathetic, and things like
Intuitive.
that. Yeah, intuitive and stuff like that. Also,
Yeah.
those have got to partner really well together. Then,
Um, I mean, sometimes I feel like my sun sort of gets lost, which I feel like that sort of makes sense because when you're thinking about like the sun, moon, and ascendant, your sun is really like the canvas.
right?
That it's like the backdrop. It's like what everything is being painted onto.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be really broad and sort of harder to connect with versus your moon sign, which
Right.
is your, your inner emotions. Although at the same time, sometimes you're that's such a deep part of you that you don't even know what's going on there.
Yeah.
Like you're not even fully aware of, like, if you're somebody who isn't very emotionally like you're just not in touch with your emotional self.
Right.
People might experience you differently and you're like, what are you talking about? Like I'm not explosive. I don't have a short fuse. I don't fly off the handle. And it's like, well, yes, you do. And that might be like a fire moon person.
So I've always been described as sharp,
Mm-hmm.
and to me, well, not to make an excuse because I can own up to that for sure, but I see it as being upfront, honest, and no frills or BS.
Ooh, and this is super interesting. So you have the sun and the moon in Aries, which is ruled by Mars.
Right.
Mars is the ruler of sharp implements.
Really?
Yes.
Hilarious.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that's funny.
And even surgery.
Yeah.
It also, Mars also rules over surgeries because, you think about the instruments needed for surgery.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a perfect descriptor of maybe I never want to talk about signs in terms of like the good qualities and the bad qualities.
Right. Yeah.
You could say,
Well, they're
positive.
subjective, right?
Yeah, it's all subjective.
Yeah.
Somebody who's more evolved.
Yeah, I like evolved. Yeah.
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 So like an unevolved Scorpio is maybe going to try and control the shit out of you.
Those are the kind of girls that are like, I'm not a bitch, I'm just a Scorpio. Like,
yeah, girl, no.
Two things
no.
can be true.
True. Yeah, but yeah, somebody who's more evolved, I mean, Scorpios are like the magicians of the zodiac. They're
Yeah.
the
I think they're the most
alchemists.
misunderstood, though, also.
They're fucking layered.
They
are complicated.
layered.
Like they are in for it. Like I feel bad for them because it's such a range of like, from one end of the spectrum to the other, and you feel happy for those people like, that didn't have a lot of shadow work to go through. I'm thinking of one of our friends in particular who's just like the light of the life, the light of the world, I feel like. I feel like, I mean, everybody has their inner stuff to go through, but I feel like some people, maybe just because of what they're coming in with karmically, they don't have as much of that shadow work to get through, and they can just more readily access their gifts and use like the positive expression of that sign.
I think some people can never even think about it.
Oh, true.
I think that the society, especially as a whole, is they're so caught up in what they're doing that it never even crosses their mind to do any kind of looking inward. I've always been jealous of those people. Like, I bet it's so nice to not have to think about it all the time.
Well, that might have been us in a previous lifetime.
It's fair. I think that is definitely possible, where you can get a little closer every time, and like doing more work. And this is the most work that's been done in this particular existence.
Yeah, and I guess you don't really know how to know that, but I feel like
I've been told about my past lives, but nothing that deep. Just that they have existed and what their role in that particular piece of history was.
Well, and what I said when I first got here was that there was something that hit me in the face last night about your chart.
Yeah.
that I can't believe I didn't pick up on, and it has to do with the 12th house, which, among other things, does rule past lives.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. So I don't know if you want me to delve into that now, or if we want to. I feel like we started kind of trying to explain the birth chart and the houses, and then we just, I don't know where we went.
Yeah. What I'm hoping comes out too is like there's, you're gonna have to make your own decisions in your own life, but I think people, it's easy to write off this sort of thing when they're like, well, I'm a Sagittarius and I'm nothing like that. Like, it's that's such a small little piece of nothing you just held on to. And even the stuff that we're digging into right now has nothing to do with our sun signs.
Right.
So, like, if you want to know stuff, you're going to have to kind of get past that first layer.
Yeah.
That's where it's nice to talk to a professional. That's why I'm so excited you're doing this. To be able to have that knowledge and sit down with people and be like, okay, let's get into the real.
Well, and I feel like something that I realized over the last year was that this is not for everybody.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not trying to win anybody over.
Right.
The people who are supposed to be exploring, in this way, because like we were just saying, not every soul comes to this life with the same mission. Like, we're not
Everybody's
all...
at a different spot in their journey, right?
Right. And so there are going to be people who, I believe, in this lifetime aren't here to do this deep digging.
Yeah.
But then the ones that are the ones that are just going to naturally gravitate to it, and they're going to be open-minded, and you won't have to say to them, well, you being a Sag sun doesn't really have anything to do with all the... Like, you're not even going to have to try and win them over. They're just going to...
They'll be so excited
more.
to be like, to get that understanding and to see that there's so much more to it. I mean, even just for somebody like yourself, 20 years ago, do you think you'd be here?
Strangely, yes. Because...
I like that 20 years ago, you're like, I'll figure it out later, but I'll probably end up there.
So maybe not 20 years. Maybe if we went back more like 35 years.
35 years?
Yeah. Because I feel like as a child...
You've always been an empath, and like deeply intuitive, to the point where it's probably a struggle at points to deal with before you kind of learned what it meant and how to not control it, but like wade through it, right?
Well, I just know that I was drawn to certain things as a kid that really got sort of cut off or interrupted, like when I hit adolescence and I started drinking.
At adolescence?
Yeah. Yeah, basically. Started drinking at like 15.
I remember the last episode.
Yeah, now you do. Yeah, that cut me off really, really harshly from who I was as a kid. And that was why I loved the word recovery so much, was because by being in recovery, you're recovering the parts of yourself, the true authentic parts of yourself that I think do come in with childhood. I mean, it comes in with this birth chart.
Right.
Like, you are born with these qualities and characteristics and, this past life stuff. And so by getting rid of drinking, I was able to like recover or unearth all of those parts of myself that got buried. And so I feel like, I had saved this printout from, I don't know how old I was. I was probably like 13 or 14, about the sign of Cancer. And I think I still have it.
Oh, wow.
So it was there.
Yeah.
And so the fact that this is where I ultimately am right now, it definitely was not. It was destined.
That's awesome. I think we should dig into what you're talking about.
Okay.
That blew your mind.
What do you mean?
About
your 12th house. So, yeah, it was strange that I didn't notice this originally, but the 12th house rules the hidden, and it's really the most difficult house to understand. Um, because you're dealing with the subconscious, you're dealing with maybe the dream state, you're dealing with a part of yourself that you can't easily access. You're also dealing with past life stuff. So the 12th house is the house of karma, karmic debts. So, like, if there was something that you experienced in a past life that was maybe unresolved, and it needs to carry over into this life, you're gonna maybe see the evidence of that in the 12th house. So with you having so many personal planets, so first of all, we consider there to be, I think we consider there to be 10 planets in astrology. 2 of those are luminaries. The sun and the moon aren't technically planets.
Right.
But we have what are called inner planets and outer planets. And those inner planets are going to be sun, moon, Mars, Venus, Mercury. And that means that when those planets or luminaries are doing different things in the sky, we're going to feel it more on a personal level.
Right.
Versus the outer planets.
That would be like your Mercury retrogrades and stuff, or affect me quite a bit.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. That's why there can be these outer planets, which are Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto. They go through retrograde. All the planets go through retrogrades,
right,
except for the sun and the moon. And Uranus is one of them too, which I know you love how I say that.
It makes me so angry that you won't just say Uranus.
I won't. Somebody got in my head and said, I feel like astrologers either say Uranus or Uranus, and Uranus is just the one that, like...
It's like our free little thing to giggle at, and you guys are just trying to take it away.
Yep.
It's just that butthole in the sky.
Yep, that butthole up in the sky. Those are outer planets, and so those are going to go through retrogrades as well, but whatever those planets are doing, it affects us more on like a macro collective level. Mm-hmm. So for example, this is really cool in my opinion. These natal charts aren't just for like people. You can have a chart for anything.
Right.
The United States, for example, has a chart.
It does have a birthday.
It does have a birthday. Anything that has a birthday. Or you could cast a chart for like when you first got together with somebody or when you went through a breakup. But in terms of the United States, we are experiencing our Pluto return. And the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was 250 years ago, which was when we had the American Revolution.
Right.
When we also had to defeat a mad king.
Yeah.
So it's sort of this idea that every time Pluto comes back through the sign of Aquarius, the United States is probably going to be going through some sort of transformation because Pluto rules power, control, death, rebirth, transformation. You look at, the things that are going on with, the power structure in this country and really all over the world.
Yeah.
And I'm like getting goosebumps as I'm talking about it. That's how cool I think it is. But yeah, the United States is going through it right now with Pluto having changed into, and ultimately this is for our greater good because you look back at what happened as a result of the American Revolution.
Right. We
got this country, and I mean, even though we haven't ever totally gotten it right, we've been committing atrocities from day one.
Sure.
We did experience a good deal of growth and progress, and we created something pretty great in a lot of ways. And I think now we're at a point where things have started to, or have been on a downward slope for a while, and people are starting to realize that like this system is not working for enough of us. Wealth is concentrated in the hands of too few people. Like it's not an even playing field anymore. No. So now we're having this shake up so that we can try and restructure the power in this country to get it to be something that we can be proud of again. So in terms of these outer planets, when they are changing signs or retrograding, we're not going to feel that as much on an internal level. We're not going to see it in ourselves, in our interpersonal relationships, so much as like it's going to be reflected in the headlines.
Right, like society.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we were going to talk about your 12th house. Where did I was talking about
Past lives and
past lives. So I think that because you have so many personal planets, Sun, Moon, Mars, and Mercury, you also have Chiron in the 12th house.
That's
now,
an asteroid?
Chiron is an asteroid. The myth surrounding what Chiron is and what he rules, he's referred to as the wounded healer. So he was a centaur who, the story goes, he was shot in the foot with an arrow, and it wounded him in such a way that it didn't kill him, but he also could never heal from it. So he was sort of doomed to exist for all time with this wound, which you would think like, oh my God, his life is ruined. How terrible. What he was able to do though, and the importance of Chiron, what it's supposed to show us is that we can do the same thing, where we can, if we can figure out what our deepest wound is, then we can sort of flip it and use it as something to heal both ourselves and other people.
Right.
So you have all of those signs in the 12th house, and what I think that means is that it's just been, because that's hidden, there are going to be these parts of yourself that are like harder to access and harder to understand. So like having your sun in the 12th house, you may not, it may take more digging and unearthing for you to get to like the core of who you really are. It might take more digging for you to fully understand emotionally, how do I function and how do I feel. Mars is responsible for how you take action. Not only is that in Taurus, which is sort of a slower moving sign, it's like, what is inspiring me to action? Same with Mercury, which is how we communicate, how we think, how we transmit ideas. And finally, Chiron, with that being in the 12th house, it might be more difficult for you to get to the root of what is my wound. And you are somebody who appreciates the deep dive and wants to do the digging and wants to unearth these things. But I think that with all of these personal planets, with so many of them being in the 12th house, it's harder for you to access all of that. So what I would be doing is like, dude, throw everything at it. Past life regressions, hypnosis, because the 12th house is the very deep psyche, the subconscious.
Yeah.
So, whereas some people might be able to more easily access their issues and things through like talk therapy, other people may have to really, really try and get even into the unconscious, which is even harder to access.
Yeah.
The subconscious is one layer, then you've got the unconscious.
Right. You want to get goosebumps again?
Sure.
So last night, my friend Ashley that I did an episode with a couple weeks ago, just last night we made an appointment for her to do that for me.
What is she going to do?
The hypnosis and regression.
Oh my God. That's amazing. Yes.
She's like, you should do a session with me. And I'm like, let's do it.
Start doing it. Start digging.
Because I know I'm me. Mm-hmm. I know that something has me stuck that I cannot find. And I've done a lot of different work to try to find it.
And I think
and I've been getting little pieces here and there. And a lot of little stuff. But whatever it is still holding me back.
And you've got Chiron so close to your ascendant. So another important thing to understand about the birth chart is that there are these angles. So there are four really
I believe
important.
it's pronounced angels.
There are those, but that's not what I mean.
Oh, right. Angels.
So your first house cusp, your fourth house, your seventh, and your 10th house. These are really important angles. The first house is going to determine a lot about your personality. Then you've got your fourth house, which is like the deepest part of yourself. That's also called the nadir. So ascendant, nadir. Then you've got the descendant at the seventh house, which is how you relate to other people. And then you have your midheaven at the 10th house, which is how you show up in the world. So you can think of these polarities: self, others, outer world, inner world.
Right.
You have Chiron so close to this ascendant. And I feel like that means that it dictates a lot of this wounded part of yourself is going to inform a lot of yourself, your personality, how you show up in the world. The good news is, because you think about Chiron, he's not just wounded, he's also a healer.
Right.
So the fact that if you can get to the bottom of it and you can figure it out and transmute that pain into healing and spread that around, like,
That's what I try to do with not just the show, but in also as a life coach.
correct.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have to put a pin in the angles because there is something cool that I wanted to point out about that. But I think that this sort of ties in. It makes a nice segue. I have dipped my toe into the world of numerology.
Yeah.
And so I did your life path number last night, and you are an 11, which is a master number. Do you know anything about... Okay.
No.
So...
I had a very, very basic intro to numerology like 15 years ago, and I did not keep up with it or pursue it.
Okay.
But I do find it fascinating.
So, there are just so many ways to apply it. Like, it's not only your birth date, but like there are numbers assigned to every letter of the alphabet, so you can figure out what frequency your name is vibrating at. So my teacher, who I worked with over the last year, she said that your name is predetermined before the time of your birth. And so you came in with your name for a very specific reason that it's very mysterious to us.
Lassie. It's from Lassie.
From Lassie.
Yeah, that's the big mystery.
Like Lassie the dog?
Yeah, like the show, Timmy and Lassie.
Why is that the big mystery?
Because that's what my parents named me after.
Really?
Yeah.
Aw. That's so cute.
Now we're going to find out it's some cosmic thing.
I loved that kid. And I've seen a picture of you when you were a youngster.
Yeah.
And you kind of had a resemblance to Timmy.
I think that was the...
But they couldn't know that when you were a baby.
I don't know.
They didn't... Did you come out toe-headed? I don't think so.
Probably not, yeah.
No, so...
Yeah.
So anyway... I just did your numerology based on your date of birth. Mm-hmm. And so everybody has a life path number. Because you can cast a numerology chart. Yeah. And
aren't you a master number also?
I am.
So I remember when you were telling me about yours, I was like, man, I want to be a master.
I want to be a master too.
Turns out I am.
You are. Yes.
Hell yeah, brother.
But yeah, this is the most important number in your numerological chart. And it speaks to your purpose or your plan in life. It's who you really are, who you've been in previous lives, an energy that comes to you naturally, and helps you to move forward on your destiny path. It highlights your talents, what you're really like at your core. So there are single digit numbers, which all of the master numbers do reduce to a single digit, and that's sort of the lower expression. So if you Let me back up. There's so much. There's just so freaking
I like
much.
you. Like, I just threw this together real quick.
Oh my
It's
god.
a little nothing. I
So
dipped my toe.
I dipped my toe. The water was warm. The water was nice. So there's 3 ways that you want to add up your life path number based on your birth date, because not all of them will yield the master number. So I think, yeah, and one of the ways that I added up your birth date, 2 of the ways produce the number 11, and then one of the ways produced only the number 2. So if people only calculate it in this one way, they might not see that, oh, I'm actually a master number.
Right.
There are also karmic numbers.
How did you come to the 11 based on my birthday?
So the easiest way to get there is, let's see, where did that page go? If you add, so your birth date is April 13th of 1983.
Uh-huh.
So you would add 4 plus 1 plus 3 plus, now I feel like I'm in Clue.
Yes. No. 1 plus 2 plus 1. Literal flames.
Flames around my face. Tell me I do not sound like her.
I hated her
so
much. You would be a good Madeline Kahn.
Flames?
Yeah, that's great.
That would be a good Halloween costume.
Yeah.
And I would just say that line all freaking night, and people would be like, you have to leave. So if you add up 4 plus 1 plus 3 plus 1 plus 9 plus 8 plus 3, you get 29.
Mm-hmm.
You add 2 plus 9, that equals 11.
Okay.
That can reduce down to the 2.
Right. I'll say the 11 is reduced to 1 plus 1 at some point also.
1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 2.
I'm a butler. Yeah, but what do? I buttle.
So good. Anybody who has not seen Clue, I don't care. Like, the fall is the best time to watch it, obviously. But, like, go watch it today.
It's so good. Yeah.
You will laugh your ass off.
Tim Curry is amazing. The whole cast is incredible.
And then you want to watch Rocky Horror, and then you're like, where am I now? Like, this is not, what's happening? I mean, I do love that movie, but it's weird.
Meatloaf is in it also.
Oh, yes.
I love Meatloaf.
Yeah, he, his pants don't fit too well when he does that knee slide.
That's true. Yeah.
You're seeing a little
I used to
more
think
than you want.
Meatloaf was my guilty pleasure, but no, I wholeheartedly love Meatloaf.
Wait a minute. The food or the guy?
No, the musician. I used to think that the artist was like a guilty pleasure, but no,
that could go either way so
yeah,
easily.
I usually don't like meatloaf, the food. Jason's mom used to make a really good
hated
meatloaf.
it until I started making it myself, and then I was obsessed, and then I went vegetarian.
There's a lot of gross ways to make it.
I mean, it is gross.
It's really good with catsup, though.
Catsup? Do not. Don't come near me with
you
that.
can't say Uranus correctly, but now you're going to get on me about catsup.
Because that's not even the same thing. I feel like catsup is a different product.
All right.
We're just
it's just generic ketchup.
I don't know what it is, but it's not okay. Whatever it is, it's not okay.
I don't want to hear that.
Do not come around. In the words of Tim Day, don't. Don't. So anyway, yeah, two of the ways of adding up the birth date for you did come out to the master number 11. So there's, you've got your single digits, which is the lower vibration of the master numbers. You've got the master numbers, and then you've got karmic numbers, which the karmic numbers are sort of an indicator of unfinished business from your past life. So you did not come through with one of those, but you did come through with master number 11. So this is exciting because it's the number of the light worker. If you take the word light and the corresponding numbers that are assigned to the letters in the word light, L-I-G-H-T, and you reduce those down, it comes out to an 11.
That's weird.
Isn't that crazy?
It is, yes.
There are a couple other instances of that. I'm a master number 22. Um,
22,
22.
which also relates to 11. It's half of 11.
No.
It
2.
is a fact that it's half of 11.
Well, it doesn't, there's no connection to it though. I don't know how they determined that, but there's not. 22 is the master builder. And if you take the word work, WORK, the numbers that are associated with those letters reduce to 22.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So back to master number 11. Let me see. What do I want to say about this? So I feel like light worker really does sum it up well. There is a lot of intuition and spirituality that is associated with this number. There is a degree of clairvoyance. A lot of leadership. You can lead while also taking other people into account. So that's like kind of a nice balance. The shadow side, though, I think this is interesting, and this might give you some insight, like when you were talking about how others can sort of perceive you as sharp. The shadow side of master number 11 can force its will on other people, kind of unknowingly.
I think I used to be really bad at it. When I was younger, I think I was really bad at that. I wanted everybody to just be a carbon copy.
Yeah. And
I grew out of that, I promise.
Yes, I feel like you did. I feel like it comes out in silly places, though. Like, you have certain etiquette for, like, movie watching, I feel.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I consider that lighthearted, but definitely very, I definitely want everybody to feel the same way I do about movies.
Right.
And even when I'm like, you should love wrestling.
Because
wrestling's amazing.
You keep pushing that on me.
Yeah, because there's no way to not love it. It's so good.
Right. Well, in your opinion.
No. See, that's where the disconnect's
and this
happening.
is where your shadow side
I'm doing it right now.
Integrated.
I just said I've been past this, and I'm doing it right now.
Well, because it's hard, right? It's like,
Well, I consider it a little more lighthearted. Like, I'm aware of it now,
right.
And I'm joking about it.
But I think maybe, and I think you probably have a good handle on this, where it might also come out, because one of the things you need to do is develop more of an understanding of like the human condition.
Well, I think that there's a caveat to that also, because when I look at relationships and couples and stuff like that, there's certain things that I'm not comfortable bending on, certain political affiliations or certain personal feelings towards things. Like, I don't consider those shadow, but I definitely don't want to be with people that think these certain ways. Or have them around me in general, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I can see, definitely I feel the same way when it comes to like, my primary relationships in my life. If we don't have the same belief system, it's probably not going to work. It's not going to feel good. Yeah. But I feel like when I'm too in my head, I come down on people. I can come down on people really hard, and I have a hard time understanding where they're coming from. But when I'm actually interacting and I'm out in the world, I have an easier time. I don't know. I don't want to say like overlooking. Maybe like zeroing in more on what makes us similar versus what makes us different.
Yeah.
And seeing like this is a soul in a human body, and they're just at a different place in their journey.
Right. That's been huge for me. I think the biggest thing for me there is dealing with religious people, because I used to be anti-religious to the max. And now I'm just like, if you're getting something positive out of something, you should definitely stick with that. Like, as long as you're not hurting somebody else or judging somebody else in a negative way, if you're getting something good, we should all be so lucky. And I feel like there's so much we don't understand about life.
Yeah.
Like, go get after it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this is just a part of yourself to to be aware of, that, it's maybe easy for you to fall into a place of, you might have to work a little bit harder to have that understanding of, where people are coming from versus, just your assumption of who they are.
Yeah.
But I really think that overall, having this master number 11, being, the light worker, being the visionary, it really does tie in with where your Chiron is situated in your birth chart, and that opportunity for healing not only yourself but other people. Helping people to sort of elevate to their, what is their highest calling? Like, how can they understand themselves and then, ascend to whatever it is that they're here to do in this lifetime. Right. You're going to be an integral part of that. But I think that the tricky part is first, getting into the really deep parts of yourself to figure out, like, what is sort of keeping me from ascending all the way to where I want to be.
Right.
And you've got a little bit of a chore there with having so many planets in the 12th house, but I do think it's because it's carrying over from a previous lifetime. And that work that you were doing previously, it was not finished, and so that's why it's showing up there. So in order to really get to, to really do the healing on the level that you need to, I feel like it would benefit you to get in touch with potentially, what was happening in the past life or lives, because it could be multiple.
Well, let's take a stroll further into the weeds. I've done some work with Melissa, Dr. Melissa, right across the hall here, and
great gal, love her.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And we've come to the conclusion through some of that deeper work that most likely my last life, I was a dancer.
Yes, you have talked to me about this some, and that would really connect, in my opinion, to the Chiron in Taurus, because Taurus, among other things, rules the body. Mm-hmm. And, if in a past life, and we've talked about this, if you were being pressured, if you had some sort of relationship with your body that was not healthy.
Right.
That could be carrying over into this life.
And I think that same idea, those positionings that you just mentioned for the previous life, is manifesting the same unhealthiness to my body in this life on the opposite end of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. Like, stereotypically, a dancer...
You're overcorrecting.
Exactly. Like, as simple as it sounds, I feel like that's what is happening.
Yeah.
Where stereotypically a dancer has to stay in really good shape.
Rigid.
Yeah, exactly. To whereas now, I overindulge so much because I couldn't before.
Right.
That I'm, like, on the verge of dying any minute because it's just too much.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel stuck, because when we lived together, it was a prime example. I've been healthy before, and I've been able to do it for periods of time.
Although I would say that your relationship with food was not healthy then either.
I think that's fair.
But you went the opposite extreme.
Yeah, I'm a man of extremes.
Right. You got to find that sweet spot.
I am not good at balance.
Yeah.
I'm always gonna overdo everything.
So we've got your 6th house, which rules, among other things, and I feel like that's going to be my thing. Among other things, because each of these signs rules a plethora of things.
Right, yeah.
But one of the things that the 6th house rules is health and wellness. Mm-hmm. You have Saturn in that house.
Right. And
Saturn is sort of the party crasher. Saturn, everything has a dual nature. Saturn can either help us really to, like, ground in the goal and like the work and do it and get it done. Or he can just really be a buzzkill and really make life difficult.
Right.
And the fact that you have Saturn in your 6th house of health and wellness, I'm still lacking a good deal in my ability to interpret charts because there's another layer to all this, which is how the planets relate to one another in the chart and how they relate to the angles, which I did talk a little bit about, you having a conjunction between your ascendant and your Chiron.
Yeah.
But, there are also conjunctions between your sun and your moon. And, Saturn is making an aspect to something else in your chart. I'm just not to the point yet where I can pick that out and tell you what exactly is Saturn messing with.
Right.
Besides just being in your 6th house and maybe crashing your efforts to get your health and wellness where you want it to be.
I'd be curious about what it's connected to because, like I said, I do feel genuinely stuck in it. Then it just becomes a spiral of being depression and upset and all this stuff. It's like it seems so stupid when you can sit here and look at it and you're like, Jesus Christ, just do it. But then you're like,
Yeah, and you have to investigate that, like, why? Where am I getting stopped up here and why? And I think that that's why astrology can be such a great tool, and I would love to work with mental health practitioners that are on board with this kind of thing, like Melissa, like our other friend Jessica, who...
Miss Punzo? Dr. Punzo?
Yeah. Yes. I listened to her episode and I was delighted
she's
to hear all the things she's interested in. And I follow her a little on social media and I see you posting those astrology stories and whatnot. Like, I see you.
I think they're ahead of the curve because I think that's the way of the future.
I certainly hope so. So I would love to work in tandem with people like that. And it's like, it's kind of like having, like, let's say you had a Tim manual and there's like a bunch of pages are ripped out.
Yeah.
And you're working with your provider trying to figure out, like, trying to piece this together.
I feel like the page says, this is critical to keep Tim running, and that page has been ripped out.
Right. And something like astrology, something like numerology, any of these sort of metaphysical arts, they might help you put a page back in, because it's not always, I don't feel like we always need to go back to the why, go back to the moment, go back to the precipitating event or whatever it was, but I think in some cases it really does help, and especially if it is something like, past life. If these are karmic things that you've been carrying with you from a previous life, like, I think it helps you to, like, take some of that weight off yourself. Like, be like, I am not a piece of shit. I'm not just like, I'm not just a failure, you know? It's because there's just more than we can see.
Right.
Like, at any given time in this third dimension we live in.
That's true. So
much more.
Yeah.
And I feel like as soon as people start opening their minds to that, it's like it opens the doors to so much.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot of information we just gave everybody.
Have people checked out? Like, oh my God, I don't blame you. Because listen, seriously, I started listening to an astrology podcast in 2000. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Like, I just decided I am going to hang on for dear life and just, like, I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to hang in there. And, I just knew that over time I would find a way to have it make sense.
Yeah.
But initially it did not. It did not make sense.
You got to start somewhere, right?
True.
You said in 2000?
Yeah.
That's funny. So I have a collection of astrology books all 12 of them. They're a set.
I remember us talking about those. Yeah.
But that's when I started buying them. Is the same time.
You must have had something else then prior to that, because I remember when we met or early on in our friendship.
You said 2000.
Oh no,
You meant something else.
I meant 2020.
Yeah, okay. That's different. Yeah. I've been doing this a long time.
You like, look, you.
Can you tell us too about some kind of outlier things that also play into this as we're growing? Something like the return of Saturn.
Yeah, the astrologer that I started following in 2020, not 2000, I don't know if she still does it, but she, every year at least, would have like a course, I don't know how many weeks long, but for people going through their Saturn return.
Which is about 29 and a half years.
I don't know. Yeah, somewhere between 25 and 29 maybe. I thought it was less than 29. I thought it was more around like the...
I've been told it's 29 and a half, like...
Okay.
With it, like, pretty close to that, which is... It's literally just how long it takes Saturn to return to the exact point it was when you were born.
Correct.
And everybody goes through the return of Saturn. There's a No Doubt album called Return of Saturn.
I know. I loved that album.
It's a good album. Yeah. But it's usually, and correct me if I'm wrong, it usually plays a part where you start reevaluating where you're at in life. Some people would call this a midlife crisis time, but it's usually where you start really taking a look at yourself and where you're at versus where you want to be and what you want to do.
Yeah, because Saturn, he has many names. The Taskmaster, Lord Karma, the Timekeeper. There's even, when I started my job, we switched timekeeping systems, but when I first started, the online timekeeping system we used was called Chronos, and that's another name for Saturn.
Right.
So yeah, Saturn rules Capricorn. Capricorn is that sign that is like, they have all the receipts. Yeah. Like literal and figurative, right? Like they can show you the proof. And that's like Saturn. Saturn is keeping track of, he's pointing at his watch, like what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like TikTok, what the fuck are we doing here? Are we here to like do what we really want to do, or are we just screwing around?
Right. It could happen. It could probably happen 3 times, but
yeah,
it'll happen again if around 59.
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of thing. I guess that's. I don't know. Maybe that's closer to a midlife crisis.
I feel like that is more like midlife range. Although, and this is probably why I associated it with like 25. Age 25 was because my grandma gave me a book, which now I know she was really trying to tell me something, called Quarter Life Crisis.
Oh.
Because I don't know if this is still like a thing, but it had become, the idea was that like people were having some sort of a crisis around 25, which it does make sense, because it's like, okay, you've graduated high school, if you went to college, you're out, you're probably discovering how much the world kind of sucks, like having to go to a grown-up job every day.
It's definitely not what they've sold you up to that point.
Right, so you're very disillusioned at that point. But yeah, that Saturn return, I think as with anything, it depends on what you need. Like, do you need somebody to like give you a good shake and be like, hey, wake up, like we're not going in the right direction? Or I think it can be a real grounding force.
Yeah.
Maybe if you are somebody who, let's say you're at your second Saturn return, you've already been through one, maybe that first one was a little bit bumpy, you figured some things out, and now you're coming up on 60 and you're like, oh, I know where I want to be, I know what I'm doing, Saturn is going to help me ground in this vision into reality at this point and help me build something. I think it was Virgin Records, whoever the founder, the CEO, he had a really prominent Saturn in his birth chart, and because of that, it really helped him to build something mega successful.
Yeah.
So in terms of the Saturn return, I think it's just, where you are, what you need Saturn to come in and do at that point in life.
Yeah. So it meets you where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is nice.
It just
Mine seems to be blinding me, but
seems to be what?
blinding me.
Blinding you at every turn.
Yeah. Saturn's like, I don't think you're ready to see this.
Well, I feel like you just, like we said, you have this stuff to unearth yet.
Yeah.
Like you're still figuring it out, and like up until today, I didn't know that, with having the sun in the 12th house, like there's such a big component of yourself that is hidden from even yourself. And so of course, like Saturn is not going to be able to come in and do what he needs to do if you're not where you need to be in terms of like your self-understanding.
It's a little disheartening just because I've done a lot of internal work,
mm-hmm.
and I feel like I'm the best version of myself every day. Like, just that I'm constantly trying to progress forward, and then to be like, you don't even have it figured out, but.
I also think it's kind of a gift, though, and this takes so much discipline to keep this perspective, because I've gone through times myself where it's like, why in the hell do I have to go through this?
Yeah.
Like, why do I have to struggle this hard? It doesn't seem fair. I'm doing the work. Like, when is it going to come together? And then I think about what I ultimately want to do working with people, and how are they, if I didn't have any challenges, any shit to work through, and I'm trying to tell them how to do it, where's my credibility?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why, you gotta walk that line of relating to people, but not trauma bonding.
Yeah, you do. You have to be able to rise above it. But I think that somebody with a lot of trauma, somebody who has to go through a lot to really do the work and to really understand themselves, like, you then stand to offer the most to other people, because it's like, oh, I've been through it and back. Versus somebody who's like, I just think this is interesting and I like to talk to people.
Right. Yeah, I've stared into the abyss.
Right.
Trust me, I've been a lot of candles.
You've what?
That's from a movie.
I don't know the movie.
That's a shame. Now, here's your homework. You should go home and watch Our Idiot Brother.
What is it?
Our Idiot Brother.
Our Idiot Brother. Who's in it?
Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There's a ton of other people, but it's amazing.
I can't decide how I feel about Paul Rudd sometimes.
Well, let me help you there. He's amazing.
Okay. Well, now it's you've cleared it up.
I'm doing the thing again.
Yeah. That's okay. We need people to have opinions.
I need people to tell what to do, and I need them to hear it from me.
You need to have people. You need disciples.
Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't that be tip of the iceberg? Hilarious if I ended up being some sort of guy with disciples. Do you do any kind of entity work?
Well, before we shift into that.
Let's back it up.
Back it up. There were just a couple of other things I wanted to point out.
Can you say, like, the genie, a couple of provisos, a couple of quid pro quos?
What are you talking about?
You never saw Aladdin?
Aladdin.
Jafar tries to make, or he makes a wish.
It was so long ago.
Came out in 1992.
Jesus Christ.
But he's like, when he's trying to make the wishes that he can't grant, he's like, there's a few limitations, a couple of provisos, quid pro quo.
That is not something I retained whatsoever.
You're so old now.
I know.
It used to be fun.
Dude, I have never been a Disney person. Okay?
Really?
No.
I get Yunker back on the show. He's a Disney guy.
He's a Yunker.
He's
Yunker
a Yunker guy.
is a Yunker. He can Yunk with the best
He's
of them.
another Taurus.
Is he?
I'm pretty sure.
Cool.
Maybe he's on a cusp. I think he might be May 20.
May 20th.
Yeah.
So I can see the Gemini in him.
Yeah.
You know, Gemini, they're witty, they're funny, they're fast, they're air, they're
Anything to
they're
not look deep
humor.
inside.
Huh?
Anything to not look deep inside.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a Gemini sun, and she is not fond of that deep inner work. She wants to keep it light, keep it popping. Like, let's have fun. Let's, make jokes. And
it's nice because I find him to have both. Because like we'll sit one on one and get deep, and we do love that.
So I wonder where his moon is.
Yeah, man, you should definitely sit him down and.
Oh, now that I have this software, bro.
Everybody.
No one is immune. No one is safe.
Everybody's
You're
getting
going in my
out.
database.
Yes.
Give me your birth charts.
Tell me your birthday.
Give me your times. Give me your dates. Give me your locales.
No.
We're gonna get it in here.
That's fantastic.
I do. Everybody now, and it's amazing to like know so many people because being, I've always loved psychology and behavior, and I think deeply. I have Scorpio on my third house. So I think I like to do that investigative stuff. Like, I'm going to sit here and psychoanalyze you. Well, now I have a whole other angle from which to psychoanalyze you. Yeah. And so, like, knowing as many people as I know and those who would be willing to, let me look at their charts, I can really, like, apply it to real life examples of people that I know.
People are going to say, boy, that Katie really brings the psycho out of psychoanalyze.
She just puts it right up in there. She just crams it in. Fucking psycho. Where was I going?
You said you had a couple of more tidbits before we
a couple more tidbits. So the disclaimer today is that I am not I'm not ready to launch. Like, I am not an astrologer yet. I don't know how to properly read the charts yet. There are things that I'm missing. I just started a course on Hellenistic astrology, which is basically, and I don't know how long this course is going to take me. Like, it is the work that I've been doing for the past year has been a lot of fun. I don't want to say it's like lighter or more surface level, but it's been like very foundational. The work that I'm getting into now is a lot more nuanced, a lot more precise, specific. It's crazy. And so that's going to take me, I'm not sure how long, but I keep losing my train of thought.
I love the idea that with the depth we just went, was just scratching the surface. Like,
yeah,
it goes so much deeper.
It goes so much. Like, so for this course that I enrolled in, the instructor's name is Chris Brennan, and he went to he got his education at Kepler College, which is an astrology school that was founded, I don't remember what year, on the West Coast. I want to say like Seattle area. And this man is like next level brilliant. I think he's an Aquarius, which is one of the qualities of Aquarius people. If they're the Uranian type, because there are two rulers of Aquarius, Saturn and Uranus. And if it'll never not be funny to you.
Especially when you say Uranian, like
I know. Those type of people, if they're a very evolved Aquarius, I feel like they almost have this like direct line into spirit and to like just like the God mind, almost just this like higher knowledge. And that's this guy who I'm now taking his course. So he took everything that he learned at Kepler and distilled it down into, there are multiple courses, but I bought a bundle that will teach me Hellenistic astrology, which is like the basis of Western astrology, what we practice today.
Right.
And this originated in Mesopotamia like 4,000 years ago. So his courses will teach me the history, philosophy, and techniques of Hellenistic astrology. Then I'll learn electional astrology, which is where not only are we looking at the planets in your chart, but we're also considering where the planets are in the sky. And this software is able to show me where the planets are right now versus where they were when you were born.
Yeah.
And the relationships between the planets, what they're doing now versus where you had them.
So that's kind of to an extent, then does that help us see how we've evolved as a person?
Not
necessarily.
I think more so what it's used for, and something that I would love to do when I start working with people is, sort of one layer of it is just like character analysis, which is what we've been talking about so far.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where do you have the signs, the houses, the planets, and what does that say about your makeup as a person? Then when we get into electional astrology and we're looking at the transits, so a transit is however the planets are moving. What I would like to do beyond helping people understand themselves through the lens of astrology is to identify, like, okay, what is the next month going to look like for me?
Yeah.
Based on what the planets are going to be doing, and how is that going to impact my life? Because this software can zoom out, like, I don't know how many years into the future. So I can tell you what this week is going to be like for you, what this month, what this year, what the next 2 years. And so that can be used for something like, helping people navigate, their day-to-day or week-to-week life. Or it can be used as like, when is an ideal time to launch this business based on, the transits that are happening in the sky and how they're related to my personal chart.
Right.
When should I buy a house, or when should when should I do certain things or avoid certain things?
Yeah, I remember even when I joined the practice here with Melissa as the life coach, I texted you and was like, this business venture is coming up.
Oh, right.
What should I be doing?
Right.
And you're literally like, you're like, let me check my books.
Let me check the books, and then I told you to sit tight. Because...
You like literally sit on it for a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. I think we were in the midst of a retrograde also.
Yeah.
And it worked out that we were meeting like literally the weekend that retrograde was ending. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, great.
Yeah. So I mean, Mercury retrograde, they always say, like, if you can hold off on any major decisions, especially like major purchases, signing contracts, because Mercury is the trickster of the zodiac, and he will not always allow you to see things the most clearly.
Yeah.
So your judgment might be a little bit skewed. Same thing with Venus retrograde. You might not be seeing your relationships through the clearest lens. You might not be seeing your finances through the clearest lens, because Venus rules, love, money, art, beauty. So it's just, and it's not necessarily bad when these planets go into retrograde. It's just like, we need that time to reflect inward. And I think they're important, especially in this world we live in that is just like, forward motion at all costs.
Just go.
Fucking go. Yeah. Every second of every goddamn day. Can you tell I'm a little...
Well, we've always kind of been people that personally have to recharge and separate from that in general. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like the universe is trying to get you to do that on a large scale also.
Yeah, but it's not in this capitalist system that we live in. It's not really
How weird would it be though if it was like, if on TV they're like, all right, everybody, another Mercury retrograde's coming up. Hey, everybody take 6 weeks off.
Chill.
Everything's going to be shut down for 6 weeks.
Yeah. Enjoy yourself. We're just going on holiday, bro. We're going to, we're going to just kick back for a little bit. Oh, hell no.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
That would just be unacceptable.
What do you think about the idea, does it work together, do you find, or does it counteract each other when you start taking into account somebody's personal experiences and free will versus everything that you're learning here.
So I feel like I am about to get an introduction into Stoicism.
Yeah?
Yes, which I'm super excited. So right now in my course, I've just been learning the history of Hellenistic astrology and like who some of the big players were back then. How this these records, how it all started, how the records got transmitted and translated into different languages over time. But next, we'll be talking about the philosophy, and I'm really not very familiar with Stoicism. But I feel like, isn't it sort of the philosophy that it is, destiny is what's controlling our lives, and
Right.
it's fate, and things have been
Like,
predetermined.
to an extent, it's already written.
Correct.
There's I compare it, as dumb as this is going to sound, there's a comic book, Watchmen. It's one of the very well-known graphic novels.
I love Watchmen.
Yeah, Watchmen. Have you read it?
I think I've only seen the movie.
The movie's not bad, but the book is way different and really, really good.
Okay.
And in there, Dr. Manhattan, who's this omniscient being that can control himself down to a molecular level and can see time and everything and reverse and forward in time, he literally is like, in explaining his relation to time, he's like, it's all predetermined.
Oh God, time. Don't even.
That's
don't
what he's like.
even.
It's all predetermined. I'm just a puppet who can see the strings.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean I can change what's happening.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's kind of the same idea. That's how I relate to destiny, and kind of it already be written as like we're experiencing our lives subjectively on an individual basis, but it's kind of already written out what's going to happen to a certain extent.
Perfect example, choose your own adventure books.
Right. Yeah.
You can choose a different way. You're gonna end up at the same place at the end.
Right.
Is my feeling on it. And, people can have a different philosophy. Plenty of people probably don't believe in that. I feel like one of the benefits in believing that is, to some extent, you can kind of take your hands off the wheel.
Yeah.
Surrender becomes a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because you know that, like, I can't fuck this up entirely.
Right.
Like, I could maybe take the route that's gonna suck more so than if I would have gone the other way. It's like me with my drinking.
Right.
I could have chosen not to go there, and I maybe would have avoided a lot. I certainly would have avoided a lot of hardship. But ultimately, I ended up, I believe, in the same place.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like that was destined, because there were people I had to meet and things I had to go through that weren't even just about me. I fully believe that these were other souls, other lives that were involved.
Do you ever think too, like, no matter how destructive or scary it got, like, those memories are so cherished. Like, I'm glad it's over and like everybody's come out and we're going in different directions. But it was such a fun time, at least at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I've said that numerous times. Like, I don't think I would change the past.
Yeah. Like, I have a hard time telling other people not to do things.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm like, be smart 100%. Don't let it get a hold of you if you can. And don't be an idiot if you can avoid it. Mm-hmm. But enjoy as much as you can.
Well, and also I think for people that are raising kids, and like, let me just say, I don't have any room to speak because I don't have children.
Yeah.
But, I have sisters who are teenagers who are like about to enter the world, and you're scared as fuck, like, what they're going to do. Like, what choice are they going to make that is potentially going to, like, alter their entire lives? But then you kind of step back and you realize, like, all the stuff that needs to happen is going to happen.
Right.
And who am I to say what lessons someone needs to learn and how they need to learn them?
I think that's what bothers people about that is some of those lessons are ugly.
Well, yeah, life is fucking ugly
It can be.
half the time.
It can be, yeah.
You know, it's all of it. It's beautiful, it's ugly, it's
But it's one of those things too.
joyful, it's pain.
When you try to steer, it's just like a stereotypical parent that's trying to control their kid is driving them to the exact thing that they're trying to save them from.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're not actually doing anything. If anything, you're probably accelerating it.
Right.
Like so, it kind of fits with what you're saying, where it's kind of predetermined.
Mm-hmm.
The end part is already going to happen.
Yeah.
The best you can do is be support system when you're needed,
Mm-hmm.
and not try to alter what's going to happen.
And I'll even take it a step further and say, I think we knew what we were signing up for prior to incarnating here.
Oh?
Yes, I really do. Because there are things that have happened in my life that if I was looking at it coming from a less evolved place, I would be mad as hell about how certain things have unfolded in my life. But when I really connect in, to my higher self and I think about it, I'm like, this bitch, I fucking knew. I agreed. I agreed to that because look where I have come out.
Sure.
And I say that at the risk of being insensitive. I think there are people living through hell on earth.
Yeah.
Right now in parts of the world. And for me to sit there and tell them that like you signed up for this.
Right.
I don't feel that that's entirely fair. And I can't judge, I can't speak for somebody else and maybe what they agreed to, what their soul agreed to do and to go through. But, if that is the case, I think it's heartbreakingly beautiful that there are souls that incarnated and said, yeah, I will accept that path because I know I'm part of the bigger part of this bigger
it also
story.
Presumes, I feel like, the idea that there's souls that incarnate to be oppressed, just like there's souls that incarnate to
elevate,
right, to go against that
ascend.
And to save the people from that. And that's where the internal struggle comes into play, right?
Yeah, it is, because if there weren't people to save,
right, if there wasn't a struggle, there'd be no opposite,
right?
Just like if we couldn't look at something and say that's clearly bad, we wouldn't know what good is,
right? Or if that didn't suck, I wouldn't know, what the opposite feeling is.
It would just be boring the whole time.
And you can see that in astrology, you can see that in nature, that there are these dualities everywhere. There's a shadow side and a light side to everything. And they're all just, oh my God, Arcane. How have we not talked about our fucking Kane? Who?
We have not talked about Arcane.
Have you watched it?
No.
Oh my, that's your homework. I know you've seen Clue. It's gonna take you a minute. But I was super proud of myself because I feel like that was out of the norm. I mean, I do appreciate art, like on all levels. But I know that that's based on a video game, and I'm not a gamer.
Yeah.
I had to sort of overcome at certain points because even though I don't game,
it looks amazing though. It's not a game I would ever play either. It's an incredibly toxic.
Is it?
Place, but this show looks so good.
I can't even articulate.
That's actually exciting because I've always wanted to watch it, but I'm like,
There are parts, because like even though I'm not a gamer, I'm familiar with like those parts in the game where like the action stops and there's the conversation between the characters and just how awful it is, like the dialogue.
Yeah.
And there are some parts of the show that are like, and I'm like, why do I feel like I'm watching a fucking video game? Right? Like,
you literally are.
Because you literally are, but the animation is stunning. The story is like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And they talk about this because like one of the central themes is this one man's he basically wants to like eradicate suffering. He wants to get rid of all of the negative just everything negative to do with the human experience. And he comes to realize, it's such a pivotal moment that he realizes, like, they're two sides of the same coin.
Right.
And you can't, there's no possible way
Yeah.
that you can eliminate the one side of it without eliminating just the whole coin.
Exactly. And that's the key thing. And we see that in every single movie where we have like an artificial intelligence try to fix the world. Mm-hmm. They come to the evil conclusion that the goal is to just wipe you all out.
Yeah, exactly. And so we have to find some way. I feel like I had this like epiphany at one point about, you know, what being a grown up, what being an adult, or maybe not even that, just being like an evolved person really is. It's about being able to hold opposing feelings, viewpoints, whatever, at the same time.
Right.
And not being so like all this direction or all that direction.
I do think there's something beautiful and romantic about that idea, but it gets taken too far to where it hurts other people in certain aspects. Because to me, instead of trying to eliminate the coin or end suffering, I would be curious to explore the idea of just evening the playing field.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like that's very different because individuals are going to decide whether they're happy or sad or what's triggering them.
Well, and we're still going to have events.
Absolutely,
death,
right,
injury, loss.
But if everybody has the same amount to eat, if everybody's on the same level playing field and the kind of the hierarchies go away, what does society look like then?
Especially when there's no reason why it can't be.
Right.
Except we have these people that really like having all the stuff.
Right. I love having stuff, but I'm not attached to it.
Well, it becomes excessive, you know? It's nobody needs to have billions of dollars. Nobody.
I bet it feels really good to have billions of dollars.
I bet it doesn't. I bet it doesn't.
I don't know. One time I had $100 in my pocket and I felt pretty good. That was a cool day.
I mean, that's like, that is an amount that makes you feel like you're having a cool day.
Yeah.
But like billions and billions. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. No, I did want to direct us back before we switch gears.
Sure.
So like these major angles of the houses, the 1st, the 4th, the 7th, and the 10th. Something that I thought was kind of cool was that, before I say that, you have Libra on the 6th house. So we did talk about your 6th house a little bit in terms of you having Saturn there and that maybe potentially presenting an issue as far as like your health and wellness.
That Libra should be balancing me out.
But it's not, it's in the house of Libra, but you actually have Saturn in Scorpio. And it's in the 6th house.
Oof.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to say about Libra ruling your 6th house, though, is that Libra is ruled by Venus, which I've already said deals with love, money, art. But also Libra is the sign Libra is the sign of justice. Because Venus rules justice. So you think about what, like what is it called? Not the glyph, but like the symbol of Libra is the scales. And when I was listening to your episode with Silver and you were talking, well, you've talked about this a lot about how you don't like authority. Yeah. And how that impacted like the Target job.
Yeah.
I feel like having Libra, the tricky thing about you having Libra in the 6th house is that you are really you're really focused on justice, and it's hard for you to swallow a situation that is unjust, and you're going to push back against it.
Because my principles are too strong for that, where I've thrown my life into disarray so many times based on my dumb principles. But I think it also, especially when I look at somebody in a position of power, there was something you had mentioned earlier about me as a leader but still being able to relate to people.
The master number 11.
Yes, because
Yeah.
that in every position I've ever been in of authority, I've always prided myself on still being one of the lower level workers, like always
Mm-hmm.
being just one of the regular people,
The worker
the
bees.
worker bees, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I've always done well as a leader and people get behind me. I
Mm-hmm.
usually, if anything, I've been fired from jobs because they were too tied to me instead of the company.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but that's something I take really seriously, and I think that fuels the reason why I can't stand a bad leader.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, Also, your north and south nodes, we didn't really talk about that, but the nodes are not planets, they're mathematical points based on the location of the moon at the time of birth, and these are also referred to as the nodes of destiny. And so they're always on like opposing signs. So your north node is in Gemini and your south node is in Sagittarius. And what I feel like that means for you is that so the south node is what you're that's sort of your comfort zone. That's like what you're coming in with. That's like
Yeah.
what feels familiar.
Right.
And the north node is what you are aspiring towards, what you're, part of your work in this lifetime. So Sagittarius is a sign that is concerned with deeper philosophical meaning, higher truth, these grand overarching ideas. It's ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter just expands everything that it touches. The North Node is ruled by Gemini, and you actually have that also in your second house, which is also ruled by Gemini. So Gemini is more concerned with data, facts, like disseminating the information. So I feel like that's really fitting in terms of what you're doing with the podcast. Ever since I've known you, it's been really easy for us to do these deep dives and get philosophical, and that's like a comfort zone for you.
Yeah.
And so now in this life, you're taking it beyond just like, thinking about that sort of stuff internally, and you're transmitting it over the airwaves,
Yeah.
which Gemini is a sign that rules the airwaves too. So
I think it's one of those things too where I was becoming so starved because what the show became isn't what my original idea was.
oh
Originally it was going to look very different, and then by the time you and I recorded, it just kind of became what it became.
mm-hmm.
Like, because I've said multiple times on the show, without you, Annie, and Katie Tiffin, the show doesn't exist. But the point for me is that I connect with people, a few people that way,
Mm-hmm.
and this has kind of been a test of can I connect to anybody that way?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the people that I've had on the show are the people that I was around or I knew a little bit, but there's people that I've never had a conversation with that I've had on the show, and we can still get deep and have these really meaningful conversations, and that means a lot to me, just as a human being.
Well, and I also think with your 10th house being ruled by Aquarius, Aquarius, one of the quality or one of the things this sign rules is community and the collective, and sort of elevating, because it's the sign right before Pisces. Pisces is like the sign of oneness. We've ascended to the point of like we're all one. Aquarius is like the step right before that, where it's like, and then you've got, oh my god, I love to go around like the progression of the signs because they build on each other.
Yeah.
So like, oh, this is so cool. Scorpio season, that occurs with Samhain, which we need to make a transition into paganism because I'm in there too.
Yeah.
So Scorpio, that's ruled by Pluto. That's the underworld. That's like like how far down are we willing to go, man?
Yeah.
Like, let's get dark. Let's explore that side of the coin.
Yeah.
And I had this realization when I walk. So I have a lot of, since we spoke last, I have a lot of routines that I now are like, they're like, I have to do this every day that support my wellness. And one of them is walking outside. And the neighborhood that I walk in has like big, beautiful houses, and they decorate, for the holidays and stuff. And to see I think it's such a perfect way to illustrate like the range of the human experience. To see the decor and like the topic, like the places we go in at Halloween time.
Yeah.
Like how dark, how disgusting.
Yeah.
How far can we push that limit? And then with Christmas,
right.
Like how far to the other end of that spectrum can we go?
Yeah.
And it really is like we ascend into the depths with Scorpio season. Sagittarius is actually represented by the centaur, which there's this fixed star in the sky called Antares. And like if you see the constellation of Sagittarius, it looks like a centaur shooting an arrow up at a star. And the star is Antares, which is associated with Scorpio. And it has all of that knowledge in it that we excavated in Scorpio season. And it shoots it with this arrow, and like all the knowledge just comes, like if you can imagine down. Like a star bursting in the sky, and it's just raining down like the blessing of all of this knowledge that we now have because we were willing to go so deep.
Yeah.
It's like from as deep as you go, then how high can you fly?
Yeah.
And that's Sagittarius season. So like, we're getting the information. Capricorn season, now we're going to ground it like, okay, now we have all of the information. How are we going to ground this in and like set some goals? Right. And like not just think those grand ideas, but actually get there, like climb that mountain. Aquarius then is like bringing the collective together. Like, okay, we've made the ascent, we've made it to the top. Like now let's bring in some of these intuitive downloads from spirit, from source. Right. And let's use that to to better the collective, to level the playing field. And then ultimately Pisces is where we're all trying to get to. But I feel like with your 10th house being in Aquarius, it's not just that your North Node is disseminating the information. It's you're doing it with the purpose of elevating the collective, of elevating people.
Right. That's crazy.
I feel like I just rambled for an eternity.
But it makes sense. Also, I could listen to you talk all day about it because it's something I already care about, and you're so excited about it. I'm hoping that that's what's coming off in the episode. Is like, even I'd be curious for somebody that like could care less, but it's just like, yeah, but just Katie's just so infectious and exciting.
I want to infect you. Get over here.
Yes.
Let me get in your ear. The last thing I want to say about the chart that is something that people could look at and think about, that you don't have to, you can kind of just do piecemeal, is looking at the 4th house cusp and the 10th house cusp in relation to your parents. Yeah. So the 4th house can have to do with the mother, and the 10th house can be the father. So your 4th house cusp is Leo. That's your mom. How do you feel about your mom? Like, what congruencies do you see between her and the Leo archetype?
I feel that's funny to me because I feel like predominantly in my life, girls that I have a crush on or am magnetized to are Leos.
Okay.
Some of my closest female friends are Leos. Mm-hmm. So it's something that's always kind of shown up and didn't make sense until you just said that.
I mean, I don't know if it makes total sense because your Venus is in Gemini, and for men,
I've always been, well, not been told, but I've always read and thought that my ideal mate would be a Gemini, and I have never
That's
really.
what your Venus would
I've
suggest.
never met a female Gemini, which doesn't make any sense.
I feel like I know one that I mentioned before we started recording.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Go on. We'll talk about that after.
we will.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that she is.
Sweet.
Um, but no, the fourth house is gonna have more to do with like when you were young.
Well,
Um,
those women that I mentioned that are circulating around Leo are those. I guess I would say have the same qualities as my mom. Like they're
okay.
all strong, independent. They're still like lighthearted, but they don't take bullshit. Kind
Your
of women.
mom, when I wouldn't, like it came together now that I have this framework for looking at it. But I remember the first time I met her, she was at the condo,
Yeah.
and just even something about her appearance, her hair, her demeanor, everything. Would I would align her with like a lioness.
Yeah.
She has that like lioness energy.
I think that's fair. I think she. I mean, she's actually a Libra, but yeah, I agree.
And I can see that in my, neither of my parents, their signs don't correspond with what I have on those cusps.
Yeah.
And also, if you were to look at my brother's chart, his cusps probably are not the same as mine, but every child is going to have a different experience
Right.
of their parent.
That's true. Yeah.
So, like, my fourth house cusp is Sagittarius, and I do connect that with my mom. She is also a fire sign, a Leo, and there was, when she was young, just a lot of, like, she was just kind of a free spirit, and she
Yeah.
would take us on little trips and stuff, and it just seemed expansive. It wasn't like being a kid and you're just like stuck in the house, or it's like rigid and like strict. It was like, now we're gonna go here and now we're gonna try this, and
Yeah.
so I do relate that Sagittarian quality with my mom, and the same with my dad. My 10th house cusp is a Gemini, and I feel like a lot of Geminis have like this youthful, playful side to them, and my dad does have, even at 65, I feel like he still does have like a youthfulness about him.
What's the one for my dad?
Aquarius.
Interesting.
So maybe some of the unevolved parts of Aquarius, detachment, can be kind of aloof. They do have they just as humanitarian and spiritual, and just their concern for the collective, as deep as that goes, it can go the other way where they're just I feel like, did you feel like he had like a sharp electrical, like a circuit, like it just, a switch is just gonna flip?
Yeah, the word you're looking for is bipolar.
Gemini. 2.
I don't think he was actually diagnosed bipolar, but his triggers they like changed daily. You did not know what you were going to get moment to moment.
So unpredictable, like air, like
Yes.
electricity.
Right. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Too much.
Too much sense.
It does. It freaks
Yeah.
me out sometimes.
I love it. I think it's because it's one of those things where like I compare it to similar to like old Zen riddles, or they're called koans, like Japanese, where they're like these cute little stories that like it doesn't feel like you're learning anything, but there's something comforting about hearing it. Like just stuff like that. It's the same idea to me when I learn. The deeper I go into this stuff, where I'm like, it feels comforting.
Well, it's like being witnessed. It's like
Yeah.
being seen, and there is a
It
comfort
does
in
feel
that.
like being seen, where you're like, oh, okay, like,
Even if it doesn't change anything.
yeah.
You know? Just
I've been trying to get that point across to people, especially this last week. It's come up 3 times where I say something and they're like, well, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, I don't want you to do anything. I want you to have heard what I just said.
mhm.
That's it. Like, I don't need you to fix anything. Nothing's broken. I'm not even upset. I just want you to hear that I had a feeling about what just happened.
Right. Just yeah, hold some fucking space for me. And that's a buzz phrase, right? Holding
Yeah,
space.
it
It's one of
is.
those things that's like, oh God, is that gonna get overused? But it is. It's so hard to do because I think that, and I don't know maybe where this comes from, but it's like we think we need to act, we think we need to do,
Right.
fix,
Right.
whatever. And sometimes it's like, no, just be the container.
Yeah.
That was why I loved that your episode with Sarah when she talked, and I'm getting goosebumps again. When she talks about being the container for someone to unravel in,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. Sarah
it like
Starnes,
I
yeah.
want to start crying thinking about that because
Yeah.
what more precious gift? Like you're withholding judgment, you're withholding your ego.
Right.
And I think that's what it is that drives us to want to do and fix and whatever is the ego. And if you can just shut that down and just fucking be a space for people to exist and be what they are and feel what they feel, holy shit. Like
Yeah.
you I don't even know
She's
what
pretty
to call
incredible.
that. It is.
It'd be awesome if we could go and stay at their property out in Washington.
You would love that. I would not.
You don't think so?
Because I can't. I need my comforts.
Really?
Yeah.
I
big
am
time.
comfortable to be uncomfortable, especially if I know it's a short amount of time.
Yeah.
I think my biggest thing would, I like a lot of what we talked about is very intriguing to me, but I don't know if I have it in me to do it, but I would like to. And the only way you're going to know is if you try it.
I know that if I don't have a shower every day, I'm not a nice person.
Yeah.
Unless I have had those moments in the past, like, you know, when I've had many a vehicle that did not have air conditioning, and you
Yeah,
know, I wasn't
sweaty.
just gonna stay home,
Right.
and so it's like I gotta become one with the filth. I gotta like lean all the way into this state of just disgusting filth.
Yeah. See, I think that that's part of what you were just talking about with the unraveling and being the container and kind of letting go. To me, that's just another piece of the ego is needing to be not prim and proper, but like clean in the simplest sense. So stupid.
I don't feel like it's, to me, it is certainly more of a nervous system issue. And
Yeah.
that's a whole other.
Your body does feel different if it's not clean. Like,
I mean, I think you can get over a hump. Like, I think you can get yourself into, you know, you can shift out of what you're used to, you know, if you have enough
yeah.
gumption or
But
whatever.
there's a crick there also. You can just
Oh, great, a crick.
washing the crick.
Speaking of cricks, I need a break.
You need a break?
Yes.
Yeah, you
Would
need
you
a
be
break.
able to edit this so I can go to the bathroom?
I'm gonna probably keep the break in there and all this dialogue, but
No!
it'll do a jump when you come back.
I'm going to piss in the crick,
We
everybody.
won't listen to you peeing. All right, you've had your pee
In the crick.
on the crick. So one of the things I had mentioned a little bit ago, also that I put a pin in that we would come back to is you're not necessarily doing any kind of entity work.
No. I'm more so working on developing claircognizance. So there are, I think, 5 different clairs.
What does Claire mean?
Clair translates into clear.
Oh,
And so like everyone has probably heard of clairvoyance.
yeah,
That would translate into clear sight.
right.
So there's clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, and I don't remember what the 5th one is. But you know, everybody has these abilities. Some are just it's just naturally stronger, I think. You know, you think about like people who are psychic mediums, and they have their clairs are really developed. So basically, it's just a way of connecting with your intuition, which what I believe is that um, that intuition is coming from source. It's coming from spirit. It's coming from, you know, I believe that we have spirit guides, angels, spirit ancestors.
Have you had any personal experiences with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had a situation last summer that I was just, it was a really tough situation I was in, and there was a moment that I was just overwhelmed with fear. I mean, I in my body, you know, it was just consuming. And I sat down and I don't even know if it was intentional. You know, I just sat still and I closed my eyes. I didn't know if I was reaching out, to whom I was reaching out. Um, and I started to get this visual of a storm, you know, like kind of like a tornado, just a swirling storm, and getting this sense that like, okay, I'm in the eye of the storm, you know, the safest place to be. And I know that was my voice, you know, trying to like calm and reassure myself. And then this other voice came in, and it was like, no, you are the storm. So you have absolutely no reason to be afraid in this situation that you're in, because you're in control of yourself. You're in control of how you respond. You can control the energy of this situation. And so start acting like it. And I got the sense that it was, you know, because I feel like when it comes to spirit ancestors, they can either be people that we are biologically related to that have departed, um, or they can be spirits or souls that we're connected to through a higher plane of existence that maybe we never existed with in the third dimension.
Right.
But they're still surrounding us to offer support. And so back to what I was saying originally, I think that everybody does have this ability. And you know, it can be something as simple as like a gut feeling. You know, I think people will often talk about like, I don't know how I know, I just know.
Yeah.
Like I just have this sense.
Right.
And I think that's what it is. It's your intuition, and
But you
it's,
can learn to tap into that and
yes.
kind of develop that.
So, you know, that was really affirming for me to have that experience where I got that message, and I felt like, okay, I know that there's something beyond just, you know, my thoughts in my own mind that I'm able to tap into when I need to. And so when I was working with my astrology for self-discovery class, I had a lot of opportunities when looking at other people's charts. Like, you know, so we're all on a Zoom call. You know, we can see each other, we can hear each other. And I think that being able to tap into your clairs when you're working with other people, even though I had that data in front of me in the form of the birth chart, I'm also just getting information from somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm not interpreting it from the chart. I'm just, a thought will come into my head and I'm like, well, what about, like, did you experience this, or is this something? And a lot of the time it was, you know, they would say, yeah, that is, you know, that is what it was like, or that is what I experienced. So what I've been trying to do daily, or at least 6 days a week, I've started a meditation practice, which was something that I wanted to implement when we sat down the last time. I talked about, wanting to read more, wanting to
Yeah.
be more active, going to yoga, which I do 3 times a week now, and also starting a meditation practice. I think that was something I brought up. If not, I was definitely thinking about it. But I meditate 6 or 7 days a week, and I feel like that is really a great way to develop your clairs, because when you're sitting there silent and you're tapped in, I've been noticing that like messages will come in a lot faster.
Yeah.
Like I set a timer. I use Insight Timer, which is a great tool for meditating. I
How
set
long do you usually set?
I set it for 20 minutes,
Yeah.
but a lot of the time I'll like get a message or a download or an answer to something, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like this
Yeah.
is I can end my session now. And I don't always go into it with the intention of wanting an answer to something, or even like, there are days that I go into meditation and I am struggling with something, and I do want to, feel some relief just by meditating and maybe by getting some kind of a message. But there are other days that I'm just neutral, and I go and go into the meditation, and maybe I'll get something pop into my head that, interestingly, then I run into it. It comes up later in the day.
Yeah.
Like multiple times, I'll have that happen before a yoga class. I have an amazing teacher who will, when we're first starting out the class and we're on our mats in child's pose, or whatever she's talking, she's delivering some type of a message, and a lot of the time what she's saying, it connects with something that I something that I heard in meditation earlier that morning.
Yeah.
Which
That's
is
awesome.
really cool. Yeah.
That's nice because it makes you feel like it's such a reassurance of like right place, right time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever augment your meditations?
What does that mean?
So like I've used like frequency, like a binaural beats.
Oh, I use like it's called like a basu.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? It's kind of like a bowl, like a singing bowl.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay.
So there are different options.
So you're still using this? It's still a frequency.
I am using a
Yeah.
frequency. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel, and I use I light a candle.
Yeah.
I
Do you stare at the flame like with your eyes open? You shut your eyes?
I close my eyes. Yeah.
'Cause I know like if you have a hard time meditating, it's good to stare into a flame like that.
Yeah.
Or
That's also a form of divination.
Yeah,
where
that's
you
true.
can sort of, it's like
Yeah.
you're not looking directly at it. You're kind of like
you're
seeing
looking
through it.
Yeah. You can also use like an incense stick as you watch it burn down. That's usually a good session.
Or the obsidian mirror.
Yeah.
I'd love to get one of those.
That would be awesome.
They just look so cool.
One time I did a bunch of mushrooms and then put on headphones with the binaural beats and did a meditation, and I was on a whole different plane of existence.
Really?
It was pretty awesome actually.
Yeah, I haven't tried the beats. I might need to try that, but I use essential oils. I use incense. I found that like I just want to have a white candle lit in my home at all times lately.
Really? Do you ever get into candle magic?
No, but I just ordered an altar set. So that's
Nice.
something. I want to set up 2 altars in my house.
Yeah.
One would be for meditation, and then the other one would be more to do with like witchcraft, paganism.
Yeah.
And so I ordered this kit. There's it's called House Witch. It's in Salem, and they have all different kinds of supplies in their shop. And so it's a kit that gives you, for each zodiac season of the year, a candle with a color that's associated with that sign, and then a little card that has suggestions of things that you can place on your altar.
Nice.
During that season.
I read a book about candle magic years ago when I was first kind of exploring witchcraft, because I read the Witch's Handbook
Mm-hmm.
and then the Candle Magic book. Like, yeah, all the colors are specifically for different things.
Yeah.
It's so I love it, but it's crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely not mainstream
Yeah.
culture.
Well, they burned a lot of women for no reason.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's sort of been my initiation into witchcraft, is reading a book called Witch. I think the author is Lisa Lester. I feel like I need to look it up, but she really dives into the history of like why that all happened, and talks about how, you know, women, we have such a connection to the earth through our bodies.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's one of the reasons why it's important for me when I decided that I wanted to start on this sort of path that I'm on. I knew my body was like, this has got to be the way in. Because there's so much, your intuition comes from your body.
Right.
I mean, I think that we assume that it comes from the mind, but it's really a matter of like, you know, yoga is just a preparation for meditation.
There's a reason they call it a gut feeling.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But
You
yeah,
kind
I
of get
mean,
that solar plexus, like.
yeah, and with yoga, it's like you. What did I read? This great quote about how you don't use your body to get into the pose; you use the pose to get into your body.
Right.
And the reason that you're doing that is so that you can connect with your inner wisdom. You can connect to your connection with spirit, which is
Yeah.
there to help guide you through life. And so I knew that when I wanted to start doing this, I needed to engage my body, so that I could be able to tap into that wisdom and that connection with spirit. And that's all women, you know, back in the time of the witch trials, that's all that they were healers. Like, witch is basically a healer.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, these women who knew, look, men's bodies don't produce babies. Who do you think is going to know the
Yet.
secrets? Yet.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to know what is going on there? Who's going to have the wisdom and just the innate knowledge of what a woman's body is going to do? Another woman. Well, men started to pursue medicine, and they wanted the monopoly in healthcare and providing healthcare. They didn't want to compete with women delivering babies. They wanted to do it all. So it was like, we gotta get rid of these women. And you know, that's where the accusation started to come in, was, oh, this woman is a midwife, she's a witch.
Yeah.
You know,
This woman solved the math equation. She's a witch.
She doesn't have any formal training. How does she know that?
Yeah.
Well, she has a fucking uterus. Oh, witch. No, she's a witch.
It's just so stupid.
It is.
And also, it's a little. I don't feel like it's a stretch to say how uncomfortably close we are to that in our current landscape.
Nope, we are way too close for comfort.
It's insane to think about that.
So insane. Yeah,
like, I feel like
I don't even know where.
stereotypically as a whole, men are still like, uteruses are kind of icky.
We don't understand it at all.
Yeah.
Yet let us make
tell you.
all. Yes, let me
tell you.
mansplain to you what your body is doing.
You see, Katie, when a man loves a woman.
You see my foot up your ass.
So what's next in your training?
So in my training, I just started the Hellenistic astrology course, so that will take me through you know, the techniques of Hellenistic astrology, electional astrology, and then also there's a section on becoming a professional astrologer. So that is like the ultimate goal. I've also started a course on tarot.
Nice.
Which is just so fun.
Yeah. Did you get yourself a nice tarot deck?
Yes. Well, I went with the Rider-Waite-Smith, which is like your standard. I mean, there's so many different decks out there, and eventually I'll start branching out. But I started with oracle cards, and I thought that I felt connected to one of my oracle decks until I got my tarot deck, and I'm like, oh wow, like this feels like a relationship. Like this is, it feels like,
Yeah.
um,
That's the funny thing in life in general. Like, you can feel content and think everything's good until
yeah.
you see what it's supposed to feel like, and you're like, oh, damn.
And it's not to say that oracle cards, there's anything wrong with it. I mean,
Right.
there are so many great oracle decks out there, but I feel like it was just a signal to me that like, oh no, this is really going to be your jam.
Yeah.
Like, whereas with somebody else, they may want to design oracle
Right.
decks and like they might really get a lot out of that. With me, it was like instant connection with my tarot deck. Um, and so yeah, I'm doing that. Let's see what else. I just have so many resources that I've been hoarding over the last year, like so many books. Books about witchcraft and astrology and working with the moon cycles. I bought a book called Moon Bath that I'm super excited to get into. I'm moving sometime next month, hopefully, and my new place will have a bathtub I can actually use because the one in my place it's a jacuzzi tub and it's gross and it's a whole thing. But this book has recipes for ritual baths for every new moon and full moon.
Nice.
So that's like a melding
Yeah.
of, I mean, because all of this stuff overlaps and
Yeah.
intersects.
Because I used to do that with crystals and stuff too, where you prepare a bath and
Mm-hmm.
bring in certain things and stuff like that. It's similar to making like an elixir, but just I would submerge my body in it.
Yeah, like I think with most of these recipes, like you would prepare it, maybe on the stove and then boil down all of your ingredients and then pour them through a strainer into the bath.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool. I mean, I've been exploring. There's so many different branches of witchcraft. I really do like kitchen witchery.
Yeah.
And so I'm working on building up an apothecary with
I love even just the word apothecary.
Apothecary
Makes me so happy.
It is. It's such a fun word. But I have a cabinet picked out that I'm gonna buy and start stocking that. I have a bunch of screw top jars that I've bought to start putting ingredients in, and I think it would be cool to get to a point where like, okay, intuitively, what do I feel like? Which ingredients would I want to add to? We have a new moon in Taurus tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, like, which ingredients are going to be the most supportive of that energy, and setting intentions under that moon, and maybe come up with my own creations and maybe sell those at some point. But
that'd be awesome.
But I think really and I am Reiki certified as well. I got that certification last year. I think that's more so going to be something I practice on myself. As I start working with people to sort of, like just clear the energy, between clients. But I definitely want to start offering my services as an astrologer. That's what I feel the most called to do. And like I said before, connect with different kinds of mental health professionals, that are interested in this, and give them just more information on the people that they're working with to like better support them.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so cool to see somebody like come into like basically their calling or something that they're really passionate about. So it's been awesome to see you start and continue this journey.
Word.
I think this is a good place to stop because I guarantee you in a year we could have a whole nother one.
Oh my God, in a year, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, we could take 5 minutes off and do a whole nother 2 hours.
For sure.
But I'm excited to see what's next. I'm really excited to see you do more just of what I've seen from myself, of more people kind of exploring that. I think it's exciting to sit across from somebody and do it, like kind of watch their eyes get big and be like, oh shit, like, well, because they'll start connecting the dots.
And I've done it. Cool. I have a couple coworkers up in Green Bay, and we waste time on Microsoft Teams talking about our birth charts rather
Yeah.
than working.
Nice.
And that has been like just so affirming. I get so much confidence when I'm looking at somebody's chart, even at this very, like, I'm in the infancy of
Yeah.
everything there is to know, but just like the things that I am able to infer, and they're like, oh my god, that's amazing, like
Yeah.
that is spot on. And I think too, the excitement that I feel, like I'm never gonna get sick of talking about
Right.
this, and that's how you
Yeah.
know that you're like moving in the right direction.
Yeah. That's that confidence piece I think is important too, because not to put words in your mouth by any means, but I feel like we've always kind of floated around through life, just from one thing to the other, and nothing really like that we were like that confident in. And like now to be like, oh, now you know where you belong, now you know what you're supposed to do, and you have that piece where you're like, not only do I love this, I'm good at it.
Yeah.
Like, because that's how I feel too about being a life coach. Is like I feel confident that I could talk to anybody, wherever they are, and help them
Yeah.
through just conversation.
Yeah, and I think it's just I mean, my experience is just failing over and over and over and over at things that weren't right for me.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and it's like that's what I would tell anybody who is discouraged by like the trying and the failing and the trying and the failing, like just keep doing it, because eventually you're gonna find the thing that like you're not gonna fail at.
Yeah.
You just have to keep getting up, and don't be afraid to go against the grain, because this is about as against the grain as I could possibly go. But it was never gonna work in a muggle job. Like,
Muggle job.
I'm just not. I can't. I tried to muggle,
Yeah.
and I can't. So this
Yeah.
is my jam. This is what I love, and hopefully I can just help a shit ton of people.
And don't let other people discourage you either, because I feel like there's at least I've dealt with it part of my life, because I've thrown so much shit at the wall, and I've tried so many different things and done so many different things that people kind of just expect you to fail. Where they're just like, oh god, are you
Here we go again.
Exactly. And like then you feel like shit.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, like you try everything and see how you feel about it. If you don't like it, you don't owe it 10 years. You don't owe it 30
No.
years. You don't owe it 2 months. Like,
If
it doesn't feel good, get out. Do something else. Go after something you care about.
Yep, you'll have that moment. Saturn will go into... Which, interestingly, I have Saturn in my 12th house, which is ruled by Pisces, and when it went retrograde, and I had that aha, it was retrograde in Pisces.
Interesting.
And Pisces rules the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
And this is where I've been led to. So, like, don't... it's like we try and force ourselves into these boxes, and we go against our bodies and we go against our minds, and in some cases we're even going against external cosmic forces.
Right.
That it's like, this is fruitless.
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, like we talked about with Destiny, that book, that Choose Your Own Adventure book, is gonna get you to where you're supposed to be anyway, so just stop fighting it.
Yeah.
For the sake of doing what you should, or doing what's right, or doing what's mainstream or expected. Like, just take the easier path.
I've always loved the analogy, to piggyback off of that, of life is a river. And a lot of us are trying to swim against the current because we want something specific, or we think what we want is what's going to make us happy. If you just turn around and go with the current, you will not tire yourself out, and it's going to take you where you need to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's a hell of a lot easier. I mean, hey, if you want to try and prove it to yourself that you can swim up that damn river...
Last week I just
I
made an admission that I wasn't ready to make last week, when I was like, everything I do, I always do the hardest way possible. And I'm so sick of it.
Yeah, if you can just choose to...
Yeah. I'm always like, okay, I could do that, But that's what everybody does. What if I took the roundabout, dumbest, hardest, bullheaded way?
Well, there's your Taurus ascendant.
Right.
And those Aries Rams are hard-headed AF. So.
That's true. And they lead everywhere with their brains and knock their heads off walls.
Yeah, you gotta sometimes beat your head against a wall a few times to like get it. So
what a shitty thing to be two horned animals that lead head first. But thank you so much for coming and doing this again. I can't wait to do another one down the road. Always a pleasure to have you on. I could talk to you forever. Thank you so much.
Thank you.